Welcome into Sports Extra, everybody. I'm Reggie Chatman on an awesome weekend of college football and NFL. You guys watched some awesome games this weekend. We're excited to be able to break it all down tonight on Sports Extra. I'm very thankful for the two guys that decided to join me on a late night here in the city of Atlanta. Caleb Johnson as well as Gabe Burns, both in the building alongside me. I mean, between the Dogs, between the Jackets, between the Falcons, all getting crazy wins. Have we had a crazier weekend in the city in a long time?
I can't remember it. We were just talking about when was the last time we were so joyful over Georgia sports without the Braves being involved.
Yeah, right.
That's the big factor.
We don't even have one Braves mention tonight. It's all about ball.
I mean, it's honestly, it feels really good. You could take it a step further into like the Georgia States, the Georgia Southerns, the Kennesaw States. Like, it's just been a good weekend all around.
Look, we got to savor these moments, man, because you never know when they could end. All right, we got to talk about the Falcons, right? Another awesome weekend for them as they get it done here in week 2. We have to start with this. Falcons, massive win as the pass rush was really the main game changer in this one. 6 sacks on the day, 5 of them in the first half, the most in a first half for this Falcons team since 2009. Incredible. That feels like it has to be the big thing we had to talk about early. What is the major difference for this pass rush, and how good is it to actually see it come to fruition like this?
Well, they've got better players.
There you
They're
go.
more talented. Obviously, Ulbricht's done a nice job. I couldn't believe it. It's been so long since we've seen a Falcons pass rush. This must have been how people felt when Jesus turned water into wine, right? I mean, it was absolutely, I couldn't believe what I was watching, how dominant they looked at times. So, look, tons of credit. This is going to be the worst O-lines they face all year. Obviously, Justin School is, he's a backup level player, but nonetheless, the standard here has been pretty low, so this has been great to see.
Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr. both getting sacks in this game, which is great news for this defense that had spent so much draft capital to get both those guys. That's a funny way of you putting it, but just how nice is it to be able to see some pass rush and also this defense that was just so successful being able to shut down and keep the Vikings to just 6 points on the day.
Yeah, Terry Fontenot's got to be looking like I'm a pretty smart man at this point, because I was able to pull this off and go and get a draft class in which everyone impacted the ball in this game. I mean, it was crazy to see, whether it was James Pierce Jr. getting his first sack, Jalen Walker getting his first sack, and I think just for a guy like Walker, just to get his name called because he had kind of been a non-impactful player in that first game. Xavier Watts to come in later in the game, but I think everybody's swarming around. It wasn't just one guy. This isn't an Adrian Claiborne type situation where, he had all those sacks in the first half of that game years ago. Like, this was impactful from multiple different perspectives, and then it's nice when you have a competent coordinator and Jeff Ulbrich who was able to kind of round everybody together.
The defense allowed just 198 total yards of offense, turned over the Vikings 4 different times in this game, and especially important when the offense wasn't doing a whole lot to get into the end zone until the very last part of this game. Thankfully for them, Parker Romo came through, really kind of a revenge game for him, elevated for the practice squad Saturday after being signed on Tuesday. 5 for 5 on field goals, 1 for 1 on extra points. I mean, after Younghoe Koo's struggles in week 1, Caleb, how nice to be able to see a kicker go out there and even sometimes, I mean, we saw this kick. It was a little stressful. But for him to be able to be perfect on the day, how big is this for this team?
I mean, it's huge. This is what he was brought in to do. He knew when he talked to the media earlier this week, it was like, I don't get to stick around unless I'm making kicks. And shout out to the McIntosh High School product.
Come on now.
The local, Peachtree City kid who gets to kick for his hometown team and makes such an impact. And then in the same respect is learning his teammates while he's doing a national TV interview, meeting Leonard Floyd. So, like, just an all-around really fun day, because this could have gone in a completely different perspective. We were kind of talking earlier. If this had been Younghoe Koo in this game, I would have been extremely uncomfortable expecting Koo to make 5 kicks in that kind of consistent level, even if they were short term. This wasn't big kicks that needed to be made, but Parker Romo gets the job done, and he gets to keep his job for another week at least.
I mean, look, you got to take that. The question is what will happen with Younghoe Koo, but maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we have to talk about the quarterback play. We got to talk about the offense. Michael Penix Jr. threw for just 135 yards in this game. Gabe, is that something that we should be worried about, or is that just based off of just how good this Vikings defense really is?
I think it's a combination of things. Again, he's a young player. He was always going to struggle, which is why you give so much credit to the Falcons defense today for really picking him up, because there's going to be plenty of times he picks that unit up. And we saw what he was capable of last week. again, this is part of the deal with a young quarterback. Like, he's going to have off games. He's got plenty of weapons to work with. I'm not really worried about him. I'm not worried about the offense. The bigger takeaway to me was the defense. I would just say again, like, you just don't want, when a young player is going through the growing pains, you just don't want them to struggle the way that J.J. McCarthy did tonight, because that's when you end up, kind of killing your team. And Penix struggled tonight, but it wasn't to that degree.
Look, I mean, Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. He's a guy that makes things really difficult for a lot of young quarterbacks, and for them to pull out a win at the end of the day is the biggest deal of it all. It was very clear that the run game was a major priority after struggling to run it a little bit last week. 39 rushes, 4 completions to running backs. They were just getting it to Bijan and Tyler Algier all night. Bijan Robinson at 168 yards by himself. Caleb, is this what the offense needs to look like to be successful this year, or was this just predicated based off of what was going on defensively?
Yeah, I think, look, this showed that this offensive line, who was clearly, we have a lot of questions coming into this game as to whether they were going to be able to hold up. I think the pass at times is a bit of an issue, but as far as run blocking, I think they did a really good job. Guys on the perimeter also did a great job blocking as well. You give credit to guys like Drake London. I think Bijan, and now we can call him Bijan because apparently we've had that correction again. Look, Bijan showed why he was a top pick in the draft, why Terry Fontenot wanted to go get a difference maker like that. I would love to see his hands catching the ball a little bit more consistent, but I think as far as running the ball, just night and day difference from what we saw last week against Tampa Bay.
And we've seen Bijan catch the ball well, so for him to have a couple of drops, you got to feel pretty good that he can probably figure that out.